welcome to episode number 313 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's packed show, everyone's favourite low-cost airline boasts massive profits, a young pilot gains his PPL after only 4 months, and incorrect parts are responsible for a Boeing 757 gear collapse. In the military, an A-10 makes an emergency belly landing at Moody Airforce Base, and Boeing are being made to replace the sensor and camera system on the KC-46 at their own expense. So, joining me this week, he's in the studio, in the PTUK studios, as always, getting everything ready and prepped. It is, of course, Matt Smith.
I'll bring my fader up, shall I? Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, too many buttons, not enough brain cells to deal with it all. How are we all? How are we all?
Yeah, we're all good, actually.
That's a mobile phone. That's a mobile phone manufacturer, isn't
mobile
it?
phone manufacturer, yeah. Best of.
Oh, here we go.
So it's bizarrely enough, shocking as it may seem to everyone who's watching the show, it has actually been a really nice sunny day here in the UK.
I know.
I actually dusted off the barbecue this evening, and we had a barbecue just before the show, which is quite nice. Which I obviously invited absolutely no one to.
Of course, yes. Social distancing, yes.
Told my family I didn't want them round, and we didn't invite any friends. So that was a lovely barbecue, just me, Gemma, and Poppycat. So right. Yeah.
Did she eat much?
Well, she's on a bit of a tuna fix at the moment. She's in the process of eating her way through a tin of tuna in spring water. So she's loving that very much, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah.
Cat food is off the menu.
Right. Okay. What? Because you can't get it, or just
no? Because she won't eat it. She's now in year 11 of her cat years.
Okay.
And I think it's safe to say that she's now decided that general cat food, as Matt will know because he's stayed here and looked after Poppy, general cat food is just rubbish, and she will not eat anything unless it's human-based food.
I must admit, several times I've sort of often wondered why on earth you were wasting your money on said things.
I know. Honestly, actually, all jokes aside, it's actually cheaper to buy a tin of tuna than it is to buy cat food.
Well, yes, yeah, yeah.
But this is not a cat or a pet-related show. This is an aviation show. So, joining us from his sprawling, stately mansion in Buckinghamshire, it is the king of the Focus ST. It's, of course, the Lord of the Banana. It's Neville Bounds.
Good evening. Yes, I was polishing the banana earlier on today, actually. And,
a family show, gentlemen.
It came up very nicely.
I can imagine.
So, yes, another beautiful day here. Nice day to go out for a drive, maybe. But no, we can't. We are locked down.
Forbidden, yes.
Did you say earlier in the week, Nev, that you're getting quite good miles to the gallon in the...
yeah, exceptionally.
Yeah, that's about 3 weeks to the gallon, isn't it? Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but now we've had a full-on week at work with lots of video conferencing and the occasional faux pas that went on, which was quite amusing.
Any you can tell us about?
All I can say was that there was, I think there was 287 people on the call at one point.
It was an audio
287?
For the company I work for. And somebody joined a bit late and was quite cross about that. That's all we can say.
Do you have to put your hand up, Nev, when you want to speak on a huge call like that?
You should do, but that never happens.
Right.
People just sort of chip in. So, but thank goodness we've got the internet. This would be terrible, wouldn't it, if we didn't have it?
I must admit, where I am in Bungay here, there's been men laying new cables for phone lines, and I was literally peering out of the windows like, if you cut me off, I am going to be out. I don't care about social distancing. I guess it's like I don't know how any of us would have functioned without the internet this last week. I mean, it's a different world that we're in, aren't we?
Yeah.
Actually, while we're talking about stuff like this, Armando, he is. He doesn't have this problem because his chosen hairstyle, if you like, is minimalist, shall we say, in regards to the requirements from a barber. But
True.
myself,
Just a wide part.
Stop it, family show.
I was going to say, joining us from Charlotte this week, as always, is the man who this week has been the king of all things aviation Q&A.
Yeah,
Armando?
that's right. I don't know if we were going to talk about that or not, but we did a nice little Q&A segment for the UK Aviation Enthusiasts, which is another Facebook group. And those guys, I think they reached out to us to see if we could do a little joint venture. So it turned out really well, I thought. Go over to, I believe, Matt, you put it on our Facebook, right? You put a link to it?
I can't remember. Probably, yes. If it's not...
It's somewhere out there.
If it... apparently, sorry, John, our producer, is just saying there's not one there currently. But if
I'll tell you what, you can
you
can go over to the UK Aviation Enthusiasts and join their Facebook group, and you'll see it right at the top of their link, I believe.
And there was an awful lot of chat about a certain little osprey.
Yeah, I guess I was semi-prepared for it. We did kind of bill it as a military type segment, but we talked a little bit about everything from Reno Air Races to the Osprey to some general aviation flying. I'm always usually prepared to talk about the Osprey straight out of the Wikipedia page. No, I'm kidding.
That's good.
As you guys can imagine, we don't get into terrible specifics about the capabilities of the airplane and the engineering behind the airplane. So most of the things, when we do talk about the Osprey, I do have a publicly available document up. Sometimes it is, like a Bell Boeing document or something like that, to make sure I stick to the party line.
But it was, as I say, it was actually some great questions coming from the three guys who were sort of leading the charge, if you like, for this thing. It was, there's some very insightful. I think my favourite one was, I think the one that Wayne opened it with, which was literally like, which Top Gun character would you most like to be, Armando? Which was just fantastic.
He asked me, would I be, right off the bat, it was like, hi Armando, welcome to the show, and would you be Maverick or Iceman?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said, well, neither. I'm kind of a goose kind of guy, but it doesn't turn out well for him.
I can say he dies. We don't like that.
He dies.
We don't want that.
He makes it halfway through the movie. He gets to do some flying.
Yeah, true, absolutely.
And then he asked what was my favorite airplane, and I said Constellation. Pretty quick.
Yeah, without a breath, absolutely. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. That's what we were doing yesterday. And the reason why I was mentioning the haircut thing is because Carlos, I understand because he's wearing his hat again, which always makes me a little bit nervous. Is there any particular reason why you're wearing your hat at the moment?
No.
Okay.
Yes, it involves Gemma and a pair of beard trimmers, which suggests the word beard.
Okay.
And she decided to cut my hair with beard trimmers today.
Oh dear.
So the hat will be staying on for the foreseeable future. I am lucky in that I do have a fairly well-growing head of hair, so we should be back on form in the next few weeks. So
indeed, Nev, what's your option going to be? Is it we're just going to go for a number 9 all over or something?
Well, I got the lawnmower out earlier, and but I
Sharpen the blade,
going a bit far. So my my second option was I bought a men's hair styling kit from Amazon, and Mrs. Nev is going to have a go with that tomorrow on me, not on her. I have
lovely.
To say.
Okay, well, I look forward to the pictures of that later.
What time do you go live, Nev?
Well, I'm not doing a Facebook Live.
Oh, you're not.
Okay.
That's a shame. That would have been a lot of fun.
But next week's appearance may be audio only due to the embarrassment.
Right. Okay. Oh no. Armando, just FYI, Tony reckons that you could run rings round Maverick. There you are. Look, see.
I'll see you when the sequel comes out.
Yeah.
I did have a... No, I'm just kidding.
Quite.
So date and time check. It is the 10th of April. Just coming up to 7:10 in the evening here in the UK. Chat room full. Lovely to see everyone in the chat room tonight. Liz Piper, hello, Auntie Liz. We've got Masha, Laura Davis, hello to you, Laura. Chris Griggs. We've got Aaron P. Hello to you, Aaron.
There's an APG show in there today.
Tony S. Hello to you. I'm just scrolling down. Stephen Howland. Hello to you as well. We've got Rick Bell, the absolute legend that is Rick Bell. Actually, I did hear a whisper that we're going to try and get Rick Bell on the show soon.
Right,
so,
okay.
Maybe
live to invite him is not the way forward.
Just to warn him.
I don't think he knows that yet. Yeah.
We've got Armando's boss in the chat room as well. Meg is in the chat room. We've got APG show apparently in the chat room as well. Scrolling through. Hello to you, Myla. Myla has also joined us in the chat room this evening as well. So welcome to you. And Richard Adams. So welcome to everyone who has joined us on this summer Friday evening. So it's good to see everyone in there as well. And
lots of new
Aaron...
subscribers this week actually as well, so thank you absolutely. And leading in nicely, of course, because it is we should have done it last week, but it was a bit busy last week. Of course, we have some thank yous to make.
We do, yeah. We're going to hand things over to Nev to thank some very special people.
Yes, indeed. And of course, we cannot do this show without your superb financial cooperation. So this month, we'd like to say thank you very much to the Patreon donors of Adam Spink, Alan White, Andrew Wilson, Captain Jeff, Chris Griggs, Eric Graves, Evan Shue, Graham Haley, Gustav, Jeff Ward, Jonathan Warner, Jordan Rose, Liz Piper, Magnus Rudbeck, Masha, Matt Caton, Megan, Myla, Owen, Neil Lamworn, Nicholas Hewitt, Philip Labe, Ray Williams, Ruben Wells, Stuart Backer, Stephanie Plummer, Stephen Howland, and Tanya Wyman. And via the PayPal method, contributions from Richard Adams, Jenny Parkinson, Tony Stubbings, and Alan Loveday. Thank you very much to all of you. We really appreciate your contributions.
Yeah, thanks to all you guys who contribute each month to the show. And don't forget, if you want to join the Patreon crew or donate via PayPal, take yourselves over to our website, the nice shiny website, and the links and everything on there to click on. So thanks to everyone from all of us at B2UK. Thanks. So I think we better start the show as we do each week with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if everyone's ready.
Not quite. Yeah, keep going.
Let's stretch this segue out even further.
We're all good. It's all good. Okay.
Just say we're ready slowly.
Really slowly.
Yes. So, kicking off this week's first news story, and this one is not coming up at all because the link's not working. No!
Oh.
No, this link is not working. Oh, dear. Let's try.
Uh-oh. That's a good start, isn't it? Somebody talk.
I can view it for some reason.
Yeah, there we go. It's there's the story. Look, yes, I've got it here. So it is young pilot gets the EDP actually is the story, and the headline is young pilot gains license with just 4 months experience, which is absolutely amazing. So a student pilot has secured his license at the first attempt after less than 4 months of flying. Will Harmer from Shotsam gained a full...
And now it works.
Now it works. Okay, do you want to take it over then?
Yes. Anyway,
Okay.
What I was going to say was, yes, this one is on the Eastern Daily Press, which is a local rag for our area here. And actually the story itself is a local story as well from an airfield not too far from where me and Matt are. So most students, pilots, require in excess of 65 hours in order to qualify. Meanwhile, this year, Old Buckingham Air Show will still take place, which they have each year, which we actually attended not so long back. But Airfield manager Matt Wilkins has said that he's still keen to see the annual extravaganza go ahead. So this story is all about this young guy here, Will Harmer, and he's gained his pilot's license in less than 4 months. And the picture which Matt probably put on the screen there is with Brian Salter, his senior examiner at Old Buck Aero Club. And the actual club itself, Old Buckingham, is one of the more popular clubs in the area alongside Seething, where there is a lot of training that goes on there. Not quite so much at the moment because of what's going on in the world, but there is quite a lot of training that goes on at Old Buckingham. But the air show itself, they are hoping to have the air show go ahead in August this year, all being well with what's going on. And I don't know, if things go back to normal, Matt, do you fancy having a ride over there one day?
Well, I mean, I'm sort of reaching a point actually where it'd be quite nice to actually see some aircraft, wouldn't it? So any excuse really to go to any air show, frankly, would be a bonus. So yeah, fingers crossed if it goes ahead. I think we'd be mad to. I think perhaps we'd just go as punters for a change and just go and enjoy some aircraft.
But what do you reckon of this Armando? 4 months experience, and this guy's already got his PPL.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfectly fine, especially the guys that go down to academies and they commit themselves full time to flight training. That's completely the way to do it. And that's what I recommend to anybody that I ever talk to that's interested about getting their pilot licenses. If you can afford it and you can take time off work, just do it all in one go. And on top of that, do your PPL, do your instrument, in the UK, do your night rating, do it all at the same time if you can afford it, because you'll end up saving money by not having to go over lessons when you have like a 2-week or a 3-week break between flights. And the weather over there in Europe can be very challenging, especially for PPL, since you're not doing adverse weather. So 4 months, fantastic. And I don't want to break up that thing that is keeping us all inside quite yet. But there is a debate here in the U.S., and they've left it up to the states as to whether or not flight schools are considered essential businesses and whether or not they stay open. Some states they are staying open, other states they are completely closed. Very interesting turn in the pilot shortage sort of story with this thing.
There's been quite a kind of quieting down, I should say, of the GA flying in the area where we are here. As Matt will know as well as me, you generally tend to find there that during a day, especially like today, where the weather has been really clear, the skies have been really clear, you have probably a continuous stream of general aviation Cessnas, Pipers, Cubs flying over. And today, I've seen one microlight go over today. That's all I've seen go over today.
But I mean, should that microlight be in the air? Because I mean, at what point does that become essential travel?
It did actually. I did think about what he was doing in the air. He actually came over from. Funnily enough, he came over from towards where Seething is, which is the other flight school not far from here. So what he was doing in the air, I don't know. But I'm not sure. I don't think there is a complete ban on all general aviation flying here in the UK. Because Armando, I know you guys can still. I think you're still okay for GA flying in the US.
Well, it's kind of different, right? So Liz is saying that there's no GA up there, and the CAA have advised against GA flying. That's from Tony S. So advising against and forbidding it are two different things. I think here in the U.S., most states, if they have even issued an opinion on it, because I think that's such, as we say, low-hanging fruit for the current situation, that it's kind of up to the individuals. I mean, so for example, I sent you guys a picture of me and Maddie going out to wash the airplane. There was nobody out there. There was nobody at the airport. So we could have easily just taken that airplane up, gone for a little ride, go around the lake, not seen anybody, completely social distancing. So I suppose, there's recommendations against it, but but there's no way to enforce that. I don't think, not here in the US. I don't believe.
So Alan from Helston in the chat room says there was a guy on flight radar and a twin that flew out of Newquay and was ploughing furrows in the sky over Somerset for over an hour. So, there is still, I know the flight schools are definitely closed here, local to us, but there is still GA flying here in the UK. So either they haven't enforced a ban on GA flying or it's still going ahead.
Do you guys think that there should be a ban, or that there is something wrong with light aircraft flying?
Well, I mean, the thing is when my argument would be essentially we're not, we're told that we're only allowed to go out of the house for like medical emergencies, food, or we're allowed an hour's worth of recreational exercise. That doesn't include 5 minutes of walking, 55 minutes in a park having something to eat, I should stress. So I don't know. I mean, it's me personally, I feel like no, there shouldn't be any GA flying going because it's not essential unless you're having to get from point A to point B for a medical emergency, in which case that's probably the fastest way of getting you to Norwich is sort of in a little GA aircraft. But personally, it's for me it's a definite no. In fact, actually. John's just said in here, with the current government guidance on coronavirus precludes recreational GA flying. So this is being observed in practice by the vast majority of the GA community, and we are grateful to them for doing so. The message we're receiving from the GA community is that they fully appreciate the need for these restrictions, and observing them is being widely encouraged throughout the community. Again, we are very, very grateful for this. I mean, I personally... it's a no from me, but what's everybody else's thought on it?
I can see it from both things, really. Obviously, you could say that if you're on your own, you own your own plane, and for some people who own their own airstrips here within Norfolk and Suffolk on the East Coast, that if you are flying on your own in your own aircraft, then it's okay. But then you've got to see it from I think Liz said in the chat room, that if you have an accident or anything happens like that, then you are then taking up resources from the local, NHS, or from the local emergency services that could be going elsewhere.
Actually, Chris has got a good point in the chat room here. There is an exception to that, of course, and I think we were talking, during the week about this, where the fact that Chris Griggs is saying survey flying obviously would be work that you can't do from home, but obviously that is your job. So I guess you could argue that is a thing. I mean, my only sort of feeling against it, if you like, is essentially that I'm not allowed to get in my lovely C-Max that everybody bought me and go for a pleasure drive. Bearing in mind that I'm on my own, I'm not really supposed to get in my car and go for a half-hour drive or whatever. So
you know what you got to do instead, Matt?
Yeah, right, okay.
Go and give it a damn good clean.
Oh, you are obsessed, boy. Honestly. Anyway, Nev, what do you reckon? I mean, what's your thoughts?
No, I'm with you, Matt. You can't drive your car really, apart from going down to the shop occasionally to buy food and essentials, and that's it. So yeah. I think the same's got to apply to GA flying, because the moment you go down to the flying club and you're interfacing with other people, you're paying your landing fees to the guy in the in the main club house, as it were. So yeah, I think it's got to be a blanket ban, just as if it was a motor vehicle.
So again, Alan from Helston, he's saying it's a bit like the idiots that want to surf and forget that the RNLA may actually have to come out and rescue them. Of course, once again, you are putting people unnecessarily at risk, if you like, but by doing so, I don't know. Anyway, we should probably move on.
So the next story, Matt, this one amuses me. So in the world that we currently all live in at the moment, where everything is doom and gloom, there's one airline that's still beaming.
Indeed. So it is from the Irish Times com, and the headline is Ryanair still expects to make a €1 billion profit in the 2020 financial year. So well, only they would be able to do that, I suspect, wouldn't it, really? So anyway, as I say, this is the Irish Times, and they are saying Ryanair expects to make a €300 million charge relating to the impact of COVID-19 on its business, and has said it cannot provide any profit guidance for the year to the end of March 2021 because of uncertainty around when restrictions in various countries will be lifted. The Irish airline said it expected to report profit after tax of between 950 million and €1 billion for the year to the end of March, at the lower end of its previous guidance in January, as it anticipates its fleet to remain largely grounded this month and next. Ryanair shares traded up marginally in Dublin and London in spite of the downbeat trading statement. The budget airline said its traffic fell in March by 48% to 5.7 million passengers as a result of the response of EU governments to the spread of said virus, which has included widespread flight bans and travel restrictions. Full year traffic for the airline is therefore up just 4% to 149 million passengers, lower than the 154 million passengers the airline had hoped to achieve. Ryanair now operates fewer than 20 daily flights, which is insane, isn't it, when you think how big their network is, and it's fewer than 20 daily flights, a figure that is 99% lower than its pre-virus schedule of more than 2,500 flights a day. It expects its fleet to remain largely grounded for at least April and May. As a result of the grounding, Ryanair estimates it will have to take an exceptional charge of around about €300 million because of the ineffectiveness of its fuel hedging for this year. Ryanair has one of the strongest balance sheets in the industry, with year-end cash equivalents of €3.8 billion and 327. That's 77% of the group's owned fleet, unencumbered and debt-free. Wow, that's an amazing statement, isn't it? The airline said in a stock exchange update on Friday. So it's important to note here that these figures are obviously for the last financial year that they're talking about here. So obviously this isn't as a result of what's going on at the moment, basically. So last year they did all right, I think it's safe to say.
Good on them. At least they've got that to put under their belt.
Well, yes, absolutely. You know, you'd like to think that they'd be one of the few airlines that will be able to survive this, you know, I guess. But there we are.
So, Nev, moving on to you for the next story. And this is one of those nice, giving back, generous, feel-good kind of stories.
Yes, about time we had one of those, isn't it? It's all been a bit negative over the last few weeks. Well, this is on the AINonline.com, and it says that responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, Air BP is providing free jet fuel for a number of UK air ambulance helicopter services during the month of April. The services include Great Western Air Ambulance Charity, Midlands Air Ambulance Charity, Wales Air Ambulance Charity, and Yorkshire Air Ambulance. Yorkshire Air Ambulance and Greater Western Air Ambulance receive fuel directly from Air BP, whilst Wales Air Ambulance and Midlands Air Ambulance Charity are supplied by BP customer Babcock International. This follows BP's earlier announcement that it's supplying free fuel to the UK's emergency services ground transport vehicles. We are pleased to play a small part and support these emergency service organisations as they continue to provide a critical service to communities in these difficult times. Our commitment to safe, reliable fuelling operations remains unwavering, and we're grateful for the hard work of our frontline Air BP operators who continue to enable us to meet the standards, the needs of our customers, says Air BP CEO John Platt. The helicopter air ambulances are based in Almondsbury in Gloucestershire, Strensham in Shropshire and Cosford, Worcestershire, Daffin in Carmarthenshire, and Topcliffe, North Yorkshire, Nostell Priory in West Yorkshire, and in Yorkshire itself. So that's a nice story. So it will enable them to operate at a much lower cost, which is great news, isn't it?
It is. What a lovely thing to do. What a lovely thing to do, isn't it? It's it's a service that none of us hope we'll ever need. But
however, how about this for a what shall I say? Some thought-provoking stuff. When I was reading that, the word charity was mentioned an awful lot, wasn't it?
Right.
And we know a lot of people that give to these charities to keep these aircraft operating.
Yeah.
In my book, they shouldn't be a charity. They're a necessary service and should be properly funded, I think.
I agree with you, actually. I think it's wrong in some respects that you have to sort of rely on charities for what is a service that is certainly here in the East, because, I mean, obviously we're a very rural community, and, you know, if you do need, you know, specialist care, like, for example, if you've had a brain injury, the best place to go around here is Addenbrooke's. Obviously, now that's Cambridge. It's not that far away, but, you know, in a road...
Still a fair drive.
It's a fair old drive, isn't it? And this is the thing, and then quite often, you know, you can do that flight very quickly in an air ambulance, and as Nev says, I mean, it's sort of wrong, really, in some respects, that you have to rely so heavily on the generosity of the general public.
The same with the RNLI, though. Yeah, the lifeboat.
Yeah,
it's all funded by donations and kind of from people and stuff. It shouldn't be.
Exactly. That's exactly what Aaron in the chat room has just said. He said, like, you know, exactly that, like the RNLI. It's not right, really, is it?
No. Not at all. Armando, over in the US, obviously you've got the Coast Guard and stuff. Is that all paid for by the government?
The U.S. Coast Guard is all government operated and funded. So that's mostly going to be for maritime rescue, some inland stuff. But our private air ambulance companies are just like in the UK. It's a private company that is funded either by a hospital system. It's not donations. That's incredibly generous there in the UK, and I always thought that was really interesting. But no, here in the US, there are largely subcontractors to a large healthcare system. The medevac ones, not the Coast Guard.
Yeah, it's a shame it has to be like that in the UK, but there we go. That's how things are here. Moving swiftly on now to the next story, Armando. This is something we covered back in episode 305, but you've got an update on this story.
Yeah, as is common, we usually get an update about a year after the fact or something, or, you know, investigation updates. But earlier this year on February 7th, there was an Iceland Air, Boeing 757-200 that was traveling from Berlin to Keflavik. Its right landing gear collapsed at Keflavik International. Passengers reported that the aircraft bounced as it landed. It is said to have occurred at the second touchdown. My dogs are being crazy right now. Let's see. The authorities have completed their investigation and have made some interesting findings, which say that near the scene of the incident, they found that the swivel nut and an associated washer were missing from the immediate scene. These components were located near the aircraft's touchdown point. A locking bolt for the nut was also found to have sheared off. The examination of the 757 revealed that the side strut of the landing gear had detached from the shock strut. The side strut connected to the hip bones, connected to the arm bone and all that stuff. So there's some pictures on here. It seems like there was an engineering failure, or maybe a metal fatigue failure, where one of the components holding the over center leg to the main gear strut failed, and that allowed the main strut to basically do a split out the side of the airplane and cause it to collapse.
So yeah, essentially what it sounds like is that the wrong nut was basically used too big, basically to hold it on to the wheel for some reason. It sort of amazes me that the wrong parts could be sort of, I don't know. Is it the right tray was taken out but the wrong nut was in it? I mean, it's
yeah, it's possible. It's possible that something like that could have happened. It's almost like here in the U.S., well, anywhere. If you go to a hardware store and you're looking for a 10 millimeter nut and there just happens to be one, but geez, this kind of brings up the engineering / mechanic question of does everybody need to be monitored while they're doing their work? So somebody put that on there at some point while they were servicing it. I mean, there is somebody that comes behind and signs off the work that has been done, but some of these times, or some of these aircraft have so much work when it goes into phase that it's almost impossible. You have to trust your employees at some point. So I think this one is probably going to end up being a human error thing.
Yeah.
This was just over 20-year-old airframe. This was started off life, actually. This one started off life with Iberia back in 2000, moved over to another Spanish carrier 2006, then moved to Iceland Air in 2007, was leased to Ghana International Airlines in 2007, and then put back into Iceland Air's fleet back in November in 2007. And obviously that had the gear collapse. So it's got a few miles on the clock, and it's had a few owners, but yeah, maintenance. It's all about the maintenance.
On the subject of maintenance, actually, Armando, there's a complaint from the chat room in regards to the display that's behind you. And it's your London clock, mate. It's an hour out. You haven't changed it to PST.
You guys did spring forward.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
No wonder I'm always an hour late to everything we do.
There we are. As I say, that's the amazing thing about our listeners, isn't they? Nothing gets past them at all, does it?
No. That's why we have the chat room.
This is it. Absolutely. Room. Yeah. Richard Adams is suggesting maybe he runs permanently on Zulu. I mean, that's not such a daft suggestion, actually, is it? But there we are. Yeah. So Armando will put that right forthwith and without haste.
So moving on to the next story now. This story we were chatting about in our pre-production or show meeting. Is it yesterday or today? I can't remember now. The days just
yesterday, mate. Yesterday, yeah. Yesterday about 3 p.m. Yeah.
Yes. Honestly, I actually this morning when we were out having our walk, I said to Gemma, I said, is it Sunday? No, it's not. It's Friday. It's Friday today. It's the days, I tell you. But anyway, this Christmas. Next story. It's Christmas, yeah, all over again. But this next story is fantastic. The pictures, honestly, Matt will put these on the screen while I read the story. But I think this is a vehicle that I think most of our listeners would love to own. So this story on the businessinsider.com, and this is all about a vehicle known as the Limousine. Now I say Lear as in a Learjet, but also known as the Limousine. It's a working driving bus based around a Learjet fuselage. Now, it's going to be up for grabs at Mercum Auctions Indy 2020 event in June, if it still goes ahead, should the auction still go as scheduled. So the Limojet was built by Chicago-based Exotic Coach. It took 40,000 hours of work to put together and 2 years of research and development to create. The Limojet is powered by a 400 horsepower 8.1-litre V8 that's found in some Chevrolet trucks. Driver visibility likely isn't great, but there are 4 screens on the flight deck, if you want to call it the flight deck, to see what's going on all the blind spots, and plane-style toggle controls in the ceiling. The switches that control interior, exterior features include the 17,000 watt, and I said 17,000 watt, speaker system inside and out, and the 42-inch flat screen TV. The 42-inch long and 8 feet wide vehicle, the limo, is likely to be a bit unwieldy for streets in city streets, but the tail fin, according to the story, the tail fin can be folded if the vehicle ever needs to squeeze into a tight space. The seller is also including in the sale a Chevrolet 2500 or 2500 HD and a 44-foot trailer to pick the vehicle up. Now, Matt's been putting the pictures on the screen for those of you watching in the world of YouTube. And it's safe to say, guys, I think if you drove this vehicle through, I think, any town in the world, you would probably get quite a head turn.
You know what's really interesting about this? The door's on the wrong side.
Is it?
They must have. It really is. The door on the Learjet is on the other side. So I wonder if they had to close that up and remanufacture a different hole for it, or I'm interested as to why the door has moved from one side to the other.
Is it because of it being sort of, if it's for the American market, obviously the door needs to open on the right-hand side, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
It could be something as simple as that, couldn't it?
Yeah. I think this is amazing, though, honestly. The time and effort that's gone behind, to do this. I think as the limo business goes, I wouldn't mind being picked up from the airport in this.
I mean, I don't know what the rules are in the States, but here in the UK, you would require to have the license that I've got, which is a coach driving license, in order to be able to drive something like that around. I don't know what the rules are like in the States. Much bigger vehicles. I mean, some of these RVs that I've seen are monstrous things. I
used to have a 27,000-pound, 42-foot RV, and I required no special training for it whatsoever.
What?
At the time, I had a Texas driver's license there, so no, there's an RV exemption, so you're good.
Yeah, I mean, my favourite comment from the chat room here was from Tony. That's literally that's perfect for Matt's school runs. I think that would go down really well. I think I'd certainly be very popular.
Well, we have our very own PTUK Learjet limo jet driver, which is Laura Davis, who says she's got a chauffeur license.
Well, there we are. Yeah.
We've got it. We've got a driver.
She also says.
There we go.
She also says, "I'm sure that would be very affordable." Which I doubt.
We need to follow this auction. We need to follow this auction just in case we can.
Okay. Well, I mean, none of us have got anything to do for the foreseeable future, so let's all do that. Yeah, let's have a watch party, shall we?
I think you should be driving this, so Matt. You're used to driving. How long's your coach?
It's about 40 foot. So yeah, so it's.
There we go.
Yeah, not a million miles away from that. To be fair, a lot lower though.
Yeah,
lower,
and a bit more luxurious.
Yeah.
I can see this as being Neb's chosen choice.
Oh,
of
really?
Limo.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I just have to change the colour, obviously.
Yeah, red is not good, is it? No, not good for you.
Well, are we acknowledging that we have an intruder in our?
No, I thought we'd ignore it.
Because I feel like flying a T-tail with two engines. Driving a T-tail with two engines in the back would be very familiar for the intruder that we have in our.
Oh,
in our
really? Okay, intruder, identify yourself.
Hello there. I fly, not drive. Well, I actually do both.
Now, would this Learjet or this limousine be of interest to you, Jeff?
Well, you know what? I kind of got into the conversation a little bit late, so I really have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, good, lovely. All right.
I can vouch for the fact that renting that big giant RV that we had at Oshkosh did not require any kind of a special license for me either. I really thought, really? I don't have to have a commercial driver's license to drive that thing?
Are you sure I don't need to just go out on some kind of random sort of, drive round the yard type thing?
Well, the guy that I rented it from, he did, take me around the block or two just to make sure I knew what I was doing. It was 40 feet long.
I know.
I remember when Jeff and Nick were about to pick that thing up, I just sent them a text that said, hey, when you're making turns, just make sure that whatever you're trying not to hit is past your hips, and you should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, as an airline pilot, we know how to oversteer because that's what we do. That's how we taxi airplanes around.
I can say, actually, genuinely though, all jokes aside, I mean, because it's one of the when I first learnt to drive a coach, one of the things that took me so long to get my head round was the fact that the wheels aren't in front of you; they are essentially in row 2 behind you from a driver's point of view. So, like when you first go out, you basically look like you're going to hit everything before you then go around the corner, and that's the thing that took me the most amount of time to get used to. But I mean, I dare say it's no different to when you're sort of taxiing on runways and things, especially in the the Mad Dogs and things. It must be quite similar.
Yeah, it is. So I was right at home driving that big old RV.
Bit of useless information possibly as well, that when Concorde was operational, that was quite tricky lining up on the runway because where the pilots were sitting were 35 feet ahead of the nose wheel. So they had to overshoot the runway centerline somewhat and go up over the grass before they could make the turn to line up.
I think the L1011 was something like close to 30 feet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I unfortunately, one of my friends is actually watching. So hello, Geordie, if you're still watching. And the comment he said on here was literally, "Tell him about the brakes, mate," because it was the only accident I've ever had involved me applying the brakes a bit too sharply once, and I put somebody might have hit the windscreen. But anyway, we'll gloss over that.
Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Yeah, thanks,
Statute of
Geordie.
limitations.
Yeah, statute of limitations. Yeah, quickly write that down.
So,
pretend that never happened.
next story. Moving on, Matt, if you're ready, this next story is... sorry, I'll do a massive segue, don't panic.
Lovely,
so
keep talking.
The next story is on the AIN Online, and it's all about the Boeing having another spot of bother with losing a certain MAX order.
Yes, indeed. So this is... well, it's the AIN Online is the source that it's come from, and basically the headline is Leasing Group Avalon cancels big Boeing MAX order. So Dublin-based leasing company Avalon has cancelled an order for 75 Boeing 737 MAX jets scheduled for delivery from 2020 to 2023. The lessor said early last month, dealing another blow to the US airspace giant's troubled narrow-body program. Avalon, which hasn't yet placed any of the airplanes with operators, also said it had rescheduled delivery of another 16 MAX jets to 2024 or later. We are a well-capitalized business and ended the quarter with unrestricted cash and undrawn secured warehouse facilities in excess of $5 billion. That's an alarming amount of money, said Avalon DEO. So it was Donal Slattery in a written statement. Building on our strong capital base, we have acted swiftly and decisively to address the market outlook and have reprofiled elements of our order book to better align with market conditions. The net impact of our actions in the first quarter is to reduce our aircraft commitments in the 2020 to 2023 time frame from 284 aircraft as at year end to 165 aircraft today, and thereby, sorry, I haven't had a drink this evening. I don't know what's going on. Significantly reducing our near-term capital commitments, said Slattery. Boeing, for its part, stressed the fact that Avalon still holds unfilled orders for 55 MAX jets out of a backlog of more than 4,300 units. We have had ongoing conversations with Avalon regarding their 737 MAX portfolio and the impacts from the past year. Boeing said in a statement to AIN, we have come to a mutual agreement to restructure Avalon's MAX order book as we have produced fewer MAX airplanes than we'd planned. We have implemented these adjustments to regain flexibility in managing the more than 4,300 unfilled 737 MAX orders. This is also the right step to align the realities of the marketplace as we balance supply and demand and protect the 737 MAX underlying value, especially in the leasing sector. We appreciate Avalon's ongoing commitment to the 737 MAX program with 55 unfilled orders, and we look forward to delivering those jets. Avalon has received requests for more than 80% of its current customer base for relief from their obligations. These account for more than 90% of Avalon's annualized contracted cash flow. Having said that, Avalon said it expected to agree to some form of short-term rent deferral agreement with the majority of its customers. Interestingly, though, so bad news really for Boeing. Not that bad over in the world of Airbus, actually, where Airbus is saying that they record 15 A350 cancellations, but reveal an order for 10. So they're sort of only down by 5, I guess. So Airbus has recorded cancellations of 15 A350s these, as well as 4 A330neos during March, although it secured a firm agreement for 10 A350s from an undisclosed customer. I always like that when they say undisclosed customer. It sounds like somebody's, it's like they're buying one under the counter. 6 A350-1000s and 4 A350-900s from Latin America's LATAM are part of the cancellation. 5 A350-900s ordered by Kuwait Airways has also been removed from the backlog, although these aircraft had already been due for cancellation after the airline signed for the A330neos. Airbus's latest backlog revision shows that 4 A330-900s for lesser Avalon, the leasing company we just talked about, have been cut. Airbus took gross orders for 356 aircraft during the first 3 months of the year, with a total of 66 cancellations. There was a frightening amount of numbers in there, so I hope everybody got their head around that.
I've got another one for you. Avalon, obviously, they're based in Dublin, Ireland, the leasing company.
Yes.
As of the 31st of March this year, they have got 855 aircraft on their books that they manage.
Hey, I actually have a question for Jeff, since we have him on the show. So regarding this story, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of airplanes parked all over the country, how do you think that's going to affect the new orders for this year and manufacturing, and especially like this story, a lot of airplanes are leased. How do you think that parking all these airplanes is going to affect aircraft deliveries or manufacturing?
That's going to be a big mess, I think. I'm not sure how they're managing this whole thing. I'm sure we have great teams on it right now looking into that. But I'm glad that I don't have that job.
Definitely. Oh dear. I mean, do you is there ever going to be any light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to this? I mean, I suppose in light of the way things are at the moment, in some respects, of course, a lot of companies are not missing the fact that they haven't got their hands on these Maxes. It's in some respects, I would almost go so far as to say it's doing them a bit of a favour, really, if they aren't, they're not paying for the storage of these things while they're waiting for the airways to reopen again.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I had a Southwest pilot that was non-repping on my aircraft list last week, and he was talking exactly about that, about how it's actually a good thing that they didn't have the Maxes delivered, because they're having to park so many of their current fleet, and they're cutting back so much that that's actually kind of working out in their favor.
Definitely. Yeah, agreed.
So, Nev, we're all looking forward to the future, I think, everyone in the world, because, the current times are a bit testing. But, Nev, moving on to the future and of what's going on with hypersonic stuff.
Yeah, it's on the space.com website. If I get to the end of this story without interruption, I'll be surprised. I've never seen so many adverts on a page in my life.
It's not the Daily Mail again, is it?
We'll see how we go.
Sun.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Well, it says that Stratolaunch plans to provide hypersonic test flights for a variety of customers. And the company, which Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen established in 2011, originally planned to launch satellites using the aircraft, which has a wingspan of 385 feet, 117 meters. Allen died in 2018, and Stratolaunch was sold last year, raising questions about the company's future. Some of those questions have now been answered, though. Stratolaunch's website now reveals that the company has reinvented itself as a builder, tester and operator of hypersonic vehicles, those that can travel at least 5 times the speed of sound, or Mach 5. Our hypersonic testbeds will serve as a catalyst in sparking a renaissance in hypersonic technologies for our government, the commercial sector and academia, Stratolaunch's CEO Gene Floyd said in a statement on the company's website. The huge plane is the key to this new mission, hauling vehicles aloft to test various payloads in the extreme environments imposed by hypersonic flight. Those vehicles will include Stratolaunch's Talon A, a 28-foot-long, 6,000-pound reusable craft capable of reaching Mach 6. Talon A will conduct long-duration flights at high Mach and glide back for an autonomous horizontal landing on a conventional runway. Stratolaunch's description of the craft states, it will also be capable of autonomous takeoff under its own power via a conventional runway. The huge dual fuselage plane, which used to be called Rock, but is now apparently known as the Stratolaunch Carrier, will be able to haul 3 Talon A's aloft at a time, allowing the collection of lots of data, and company representatives said. Talon A isn't the end of the envisioned road for Stratolaunch, however. The company is also developing the Talon Z, about which it divulges little on the website, and another vehicle called Black Ice, which could end up flying some very interesting and ambitious missions if everything goes according to Stratolaunch's plan. Black Ice is a fully reusable space plane that enables advanced on-orbit capabilities and cargo return, the company's website reads. Initial designs optimized for cargo launch with a follow-on variant capable of transporting crew. Black Ice doesn't come completely out of left field, though. In August 2018, before Alan's death, Stratolaunch announced plans to use 4 different satellite launching vehicles with this huge aircraft, including an orbital space plane. The Stratolaunch Carrier has just 1 flight under its belt, which is a 2.5-hour test flight that took place in April 2019. So this is a very interesting development here. So, speeds of Mach 5 and Mach 6 are being talked about here, and those are just eye-watering, aren't they?
So forgive my lack of understanding here. So Concorde, obviously, which is the only thing that jumps into my head in regards to sort of Mach flight. What Mach speeds was that capable of?
Well, that was the cruising speed for that was Mach 2.
Wow.
So
okay.
That just gives you an idea of what these guys are talking about here. So incredible. But these things, these sort of programs take years, decades in development before they ever get a proper commercial. And if you think about Concorde was built in. Started to be built in 1968, 69. It was being developed in 1964. It never actually flew until 1976. So,
wow, that's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this aircraft.
Good year, 1976, Matt.
It was a cracking year, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Lots of very important people were born then.
Exactly. So
there's a little bit more to this story, though, isn't there?
Oh,
which I think, Jeff, you're going to take, aren't you?
Looks like I am.
Yes.
And because of all the ads and everything else on that link, I'm just going to go ahead and read the text here in the notes.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yes, I would.
Let's see. This is from simpleflying.com. On March 30th, the United States Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, announced a release of proposed standards for noise certifications that apply to new supersonic aircraft. This proposal would set takeoff and landing noise standards for new supersonic aircraft. The notice of proposed rulemaking, the NPRM, is available for public comment for 90 days from the date of publication. So if you want to make a comment, do it right now. Link in the show notes, right?
Yeah.
The FAA notes that this
I've got to do
NPRM.
something now.
I guarantee that there will be a link in the show notes.
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
will. Thanks for that.
Sure.
I rescind the invite.
The FAA notes that this NPRM follows a 2019 proposed rule to update requirements for special flight authorization to fly above Mach 1 in the United States. These guidelines are important as companies such as Boom work on creating the next generation of supersonic aircraft. I kind of understand the name Boom, like Sonic Boom, but I don't know. When it comes to airplanes, I don't know if I want to ever associate Boom with my name.
Yes, let's associate an explosion with it's not the way forward, is it? I mean I've not actually heard a sonic boom, but I understand they're it's quite a noise, isn't it? It's not something you'd sleep through.
Not really, not usually. I guess it depends on how close you are to it, but it definitely rattles the windows and gets your attention.
Yeah, I bet. We've got actually a comment in the chat room, nothing to do with what we're talking about here, actually, but as we mentioned it a little while ago, so Alan from Helston is saying, not sure if we can give a shout out to the RNAS, Culdrow's A20 squadron. These guys and ladies have been retasked to COVID Medivac, so hats off to them for doing that, which I think is worth a mention. So, yeah, well done to them. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Alan.
Yeah, you beat me to it, Matt. And I just discovered that Helston and Culdrow's are on the Lizard Peninsula.
Oh.
That is not a joke. I guess it's out there by Cornwall, huh?
Oh, I see.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry, I've got too many buttons in here. Ignore me. I'm just having a meltdown.
So the next story, Armando, is all a bit about illegal stuff.
Yeah, this is hot on the heels of an aircraft operator called Paradigm Aviation getting their certificate revoked because they just got caught doing a bunch of illegal things. And it was high visibility because they were doing illegal charter flights for major sports teams. So the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Cleveland Indians, the Oakland Athletics, the Texas Rangers, the New York Rangers, Toronto Maple, basically all kinds of different sports teams. And that's been the highest visibility illegal charter operation that's been shut down recently. So this is from the Aviation Information Network. The FAA is currently working collaboratively with industry stakeholders to step up its campaign to stamp out illegal air charters. This is being led by the South Carolina Flight Standards District Office, or the FSDO. This gentleman gave an overview of ongoing efforts during the Air Charter Safety Foundation's 2020 Air Charter Safety Symposium. He credited his team. The one thing that he has found alarming, he said, is when he began looking into the activity, he found that South Carolina illegal activity was fairly rampant. He discovered that some airplanes with anywhere between 40 to 100 dry leases, indicating that something was not right. So he responded that he discovered that John Deere tractor equipment was going onto some airplanes. He'd heard stories about pilots being pressured to fly aircraft, even though there was equipment failures and things written up. Then he added that there was no way to really assure for a passenger that an operator is legal or not, and that there was not a good way to see if these operators are meeting drug testing requirements, flight duty restrictions, things like that. So he continued on reaching out to the airports and FBO managers throughout the state that basically anyone that would listen to him, his educational campaign disrupting posters on the subject, meetings have started in South Carolina, but they've begun to spread throughout the country. And this article is written, it's a little bit convoluted, but basically I didn't know that this was such a big deal. And I as I started reading about it, it would be incredibly easy for a passenger just to Google or go to an airport and say, hey, I'm looking to buy a ticket or charter an airplane to do this and that, take my cargo, take my people from A to B. And there, from a consumer standpoint, there's really no way to verify that operator is legal or not, or complying with federal aviation regulations. And I know that when you go through commercial pilot training, and Jeff, you can chime in also, but commercial pilot training, they really harp on what you can and can't do with your certificate. And then your personal certificate is very different than the operator certificate. So that's great that you have a commercial pilot license, but I can't just take my Cessna and go start giving rides or taking people A to B, because that would make me a Part 135 non-scheduled operation. But it's so rampant after I started reading about it that, what a problem, I guess, that I didn't know existed. Very interesting about that.
Yeah, for me, it's Acme Airlines, whatever we are flying out there, whether it be scheduled air service or charter air service, it's all done by various departments at the airline. So I know that when I show up and fly my Acme branded airplane, whatever it is I'm doing is legit. It's legal. And another thing they mentioned in this article, Armando, is the fact that these pilots aren't subject to the same kind of restrictions or checks or cross checks or whatever for drug, alcohol testing, that kind of thing. So, it's definitely a big problem. What kind of airplanes are they using here? They really didn't mention here in this article.
Well, believe it or not, that Paradigm Air was on 757s and 767s.
Wow. The people that are chartering these things, they probably have no idea that what they were getting into was an illegal operation.
Yeah, and can you imagine if something went wrong? Now you have the entire, Cleveland Indians on an aircraft with the hap that suffers a mishap. And yeah, I mean,
getting hit in the head with a John Deere tractor would really be a pain.
What were those chickens doing in the
back? Nice. Right.
So moving on to a beautiful aircraft for the next story. And this one is on the AsiaTimes.com. Now, we're trying to discuss, when we were talking about this yesterday on our meeting, what aircraft this kind of looks like. Matt will put the pictures on the screen while I'm reading the story.
I've got a little video, actually, as well.
And a video as well. But China will soon have a large amphibious aircraft that will be capable of covering all the South China Sea, the Global Times reported. The AG-600 is preparing in Hubei province to conduct its first maritime test flight this year, as planned, despite the novel coronavirus epidemic. The AG-600 is undergoing status adjustment and design optimization in Jingmen, Hubei, as all members of its development team at state-owned Aviation Industry Corp of China have returned to work after the epidemic in the province began to ease over there. The aircraft is ready to start test flights subject to training, Liu Yang, deputy head of the Zhuhai Air Base Test Flight Center under AVIC's subsidiary, China Aviation Industry General Aircraft, told CCTV. It's scheduled to make its maiden flight this year, they reported, and also the sea-based test flights are more challenging than those conducted over land, lakes or rivers because of the factors like the complexity of the sea situation and the corrosive ocean environment, the military experts told. So the AG-600 conducted its land-based maiden flight in Zhuhai, South China, Guangdong province in December 2017, so it's a few years old, and its first water-based test flight over a reservoir in Jingmen in October in 2018, reports said. A sea-based test flight will be another milestone in the aircraft's development, and the COVID-19 outbreak does not seem to have had any major impact on the project, the experts have said. The amphibious aircraft is expected to be delivered by 2022, the agency said. The size of the aircraft is roughly around about the same size as a 737, and it also can fight forest fires, undertake water rescues, monitor the maritime environment, and carry out patrol missions. When deployed from Sanya Hangyan province, the AG-600 can reach any location in the South China Sea thanks to its endurance of 12 hours and the ability to take off and land on water, the story has said. Now, going back to the picture of the aircraft, this to me, I think I said this yesterday, this is kind of like someone's got an ATR-42 or ATR-72, stuck the hull of a boat underneath it, put a upstairs extension on, and added a couple of engines, extra engines.
That's actually what they did.
Oh, okay.
keep that one quiet. Yeah, actually, Auntie Liz is saying in the chat room here, it's plainly and simply, that's one ugly aircraft. She doesn't mince her words really. But she does quantify that by saying it does actually look better in the water, and I think it does look a lot more graceful in the water, isn't it? I don't know. It's difficult to make these amphibious aircraft look decent, though, isn't it? Really, because I mean, the whole thing is just alien, isn't it? The idea of sort of flying and landing on water and stuff like that. It's a great idea, and I know people need to do it, but you're never going to make them look beautiful, are you? Really? I mean, like the Catalina. The Catalina thinks it's...
the PBY.
Yeah, that I know Micah absolutely loves that. It says it's really...
Micah's favourite.
Absolutely loves it. But it's sort of... it's not a fantastic beast, is it? Although I think somewhere in the chat room here, I did actually see there was some love for it. I can't find it right now. But
I don't know if I'd say it's ugly, but it's I mean, it's not beautiful, that's for sure. But I don't know, there's something about it that just looks cool, I think. I'd love to fly that. According
to Jonathan Warner in the chat room, he reckons that the flight deck looks similar to a Russian BE-12.
Well, yes. If I knew what one of those looked like, I'd be really excited.
Well, if it's Russian, if it's a flight deck and it's on a Russian aircraft, it's probably green, because all the flight decks on all Russian military aircraft especially seem to be painted in a green colour.
And they just take all the instruments and bits and bobs and put one right here and one over here and one up there. Little fan going on over here. It looks pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah. Micah reckons actually it's basically just a C-130 that floats. That's not so silly. Auntie Liz is being very unkind. She's saying it's Jeff's retirement ride. I think that's a bit mean.
No, it's just when she saw the ugly airplane, it reminded me of my ugly mug.
I don't believe that for a nanosecond at all. Neil Lamwan's actually saying that it's not beautiful, more graceful in the water. Have they stolen my holiday snaps? Oh, nice.
Tony S makes a good point, though, that it's ideal for Dr. Steph's Lake.
Right, okay. You sort of pull up to the jetty, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's an option. Yeah.
Actually, Armando, are you seaplane rated at all?
No, I've only flown a seaplane twice, and that was just sort of tourist flights.
I mean, I love the fact that he has. Like, have you flown it, or just as a passenger? Do you mean?
I had just gotten back from a military deployment out to the Middle East, and I took this motorcycle ride up through upstate New York, and I saw there was a seaplane base up in the Adirondacks near Old Forge, if anybody knows. And I saw this beautiful Cessna 206 that was sitting on floats. And I literally just walked up to the door, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I've never flown in a seaplane. Can I go for a ride?" He said, "I'm not doing anything." And we went up and we hopped around a couple of the lakes up there in upstate New York.
Wow. Only in the world of Armando could that even be vaguely possible. Seriously, man.
Actually, Jeff, isn't Dr. Steph, she's rated in seaplane?
She is, yes. Yeah. She's the only one on the APG crew that is seaplane rated.
Right, okay. Is that a common thing?
Apparently not common on our crew.
No, okay. Yeah, it's certainly not common here.
I would love to get a seaplane rating, though. And
it must be a different skill, though, for landing and stuff.
Yeah, because one is like hard surface and one's water.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's the way.
That's the big difference.
One's got waves and the other one's got tarmac, unless you're in the UK where one's got waves and the other one's got potholes.
Right, okay. Yeah,
I feel like you've already completed the first lesson, Jeff. I mean, the difference between land and water. So
Yeah. He's already on it. Yeah.
Yes. That's $70 for that lesson. See you next week.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Right, okay. We should probably move on.
Yeah, this next one, I think Jeff is actually going to take this next one.
Oh,
this
goody. I get to read
Airline Safety Reports.
Oh. Okay. The International Air Transport Association, IATA. Oh, I'm supposed to say where this is from. The AME Info, whatever AME stands for. Anybody have any idea?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
But if we just say ameinfo.com, that's how you get it.
ameinfo.com. If you want to know what that is, look it up.
I'll put it in the show notes, shall I, Jeff?
Yeah, please do. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, announced the release of the 2019 safety report showing continuing improvements in airline safety compared to 2018 and to the preceding 5 years. Every fatality is a tragedy, and it is vital that we learn the correct lessons to make aviation even safer. Accidents involving turboprop aircraft represented 41.5% of all accidents in 2019 and 50% of the fatal accidents. Fatality risk of 0.09 means that a person would have to travel every day for 535 years before a fatal accident happens. Oh, good, because I'm nowhere near 535 years old, so I'm good.
We'll ask Liz that question in a moment.
Let's see. All major 2019 safety performance indicators improved compared to 2018 and to the average of the 2014 through 2018 period as shown below. And then there's a chart here. I'm not going to read all the data in the chart because people would definitely fall asleep. Let's see. The safety and well-being of... go ahead.
No. I was going to say that essentially what we're learning here is that, surprise, surprise, that aviation is clearly the safest way to travel.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Unless it's a turboprop.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Armando.
No, it's okay. They're safe.
Yeah, I know they're safe. They mentioned that in the bullet points here in this article. What percentage of the fleet worldwide are turboprops? Is that the point they're trying to make? That maybe it's like a minority of the airplanes flying out there, but they take up 41.5% of all the accidents? I don't know. What is the point?
That's a great question.
I don't know. Okay. Well, anyway.
That nobody has the answer to by the sound of it.
Move on to a different article then.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. As I say, from as a nervous flyer's point of view, this is an interesting statistic. As you were saying, that it's 2019 fatality risk of 0.09. I like that. You have to travel by air every single day for 535 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a great number, isn't it?
That's more flying than Dr. Steph does.
Right. Yeah. Only just.
Yeah.
Barely.
Borderline.
Close.
Absolutely. Yeah. She must be the one suffering the most during this lockdown. Surely. I mean, it's like it's probably the most time she spent at home in quite a number of years, I think.
Yeah, I have to say she is suffering.
Yeah, judging by all the pictures of her on the lake and her, looks like she's suffering. Yeah.
All right. Yes. Okay. You get my point.
So, on a serious note on this story, like I really don't know the answer to your question, Jeff, because I don't know the numbers of turboprops compared to jets. A couple of years ago, well, maybe not a couple of years, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I would have said, sure, around the world, there are probably more turboprops doing commercial operations than there are jets. But nowadays, you have fairly, I don't know, what would you call them? Just small operators, remote operators, austere operators in these, up and coming emerging countries and emerging economies that are operating 737s and Airbuses, Airbus 319s. I think that's taken a lot of the market from, the ATRs and the Dash 8s that used to be pretty common. I don't know. It's probably just a matter of efficiency. I'm just throwing this out there. I might be completely off base on this, but I would imagine that the aircrew experience on the turboprops in general is probably a much lower level than the experience level on all the turbojets out there in the world. That might be part of because I don't think inherently turboprops, mechanically speaking, are any less safe than a jet, right? I don't think they're very much different at all. I think, it's still a turbine. A turbine's a turbine. And I think Pratt & Whitney makes the lion's share of the turbines out there on turboprops. So I think you may be right. And maybe aircrew experience or maybe age of fleet type things. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or smaller airports. Actually, maybe it's more challenging airports actually, because if you're talking about turboprops, they're going to be going into smaller runways and more remote locations. Maybe that has to do with it.
Whilst we're terribly concerned about Dr. Steph's carbon footprint, interestingly enough, Myla is saying she's doing her bit to combat that where possible, saying that she just passed her 500 hours last week, which is quite an achievement. So well done to Myla for that one, I think. Yeah, absolutely. I say she's taken the mantle over in the meantime while everyone else is grounded, obviously, because she's one of those cargo ladies. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Jeff, you love to talk on your show about going green and being environmentally friendly. This next story for Nev is it's kind of along those lines,
which I love in a time where fuel is the cheapest it's been in so long. The question of electricity raises its head again.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing that the cost of filling your car up has never been cheaper in recent times, at least, and we can't go out and use it.
No, absolutely, yeah. As I say, like literally, Nev's car is doing three weeks to the gallon at the moment. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Anyway, it's on the businessinsider.com, and it says that NASA has created the X-57 Maxwell, a fully electric experimental aircraft with 14 motors, all on its wing. The Maxwell falls under the NASA's X-plane experimental planes category and is the first piloted X-plane in 20 years. NASA's principal investigator, Sean Clark, told Business Insider that this 2-decade gap is because several X-plane aircraft that NASA has developed over the last 10 to 20 years have been autonomous. The decision to put a pilot in the Maxwell came because NASA's test pilots are high performance and benefit so much from having them in the seat, Clark says. Having pilots on the aircraft simplifies its design because the pilot can spot and diagnose issues whilst operating the aircraft. However, NASA didn't build the X-57 body. An Italian Tecnam P2006T served as the starting point for the Maxwell. NASA is now testing and outfitting through multiple modification series the P2006T with new batteries, instruments, smaller wings and electric motors instead of the traditional double piston engines. The inspiration for the X-57 Maxwell nickname came from a 19th century physicist who specialised in electromagnetism, James Clerk Maxwell. And we've got some pictures of this, Matt. Looks quite an extraordinary aircraft, isn't that, really?
It is. I mean, it's the bit that I'm finding so interesting, actually, is where it's, you've got what I call like two larger engines and then lots of little ones. That's the bit that I find odd as a concept, I guess.
Jeff, do you remember the old B-52 joke? So like with this airplane, it'd be like, it's the old dreaded 13 engine approach when you lose one.
Yes. That'd be tough.
As you do.
Yeah,
with the B-52, they always used to make fun of those guys with their 8 engines and be like, it's the dreaded 7 engine approach.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, but look how long that aircraft's flying. It's still flying now and will be flying for another 50 years at least.
Outlive us all, I reckon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, you talk about X-plane. While we've got Jeff on the show, I actually had another little play on X-plane 11 this afternoon, and one of the aircraft on the simulator is the MD-80, and I had a go today, but I won't be having a go again.
Not Carlos, did you feel like you were in a World War II submarine flipping gauges and stuff?
X-plane does a really good job, I will say, of recreating the MD-80 flight deck and stuff. But man, Jeff, how do you work all that stuff out?
You just don't touch very many things. That's all. You just look at it.
That's an approach.
It's so different to because I'm always flying the 737-800 on X-plane 11. You think you get used to that kind of flight deck and all the stuff, but yeah, I'm gonna have another go. I'm gonna have another go.
So I mean, what are you talking about? The instrument display? I mean,
it's just there's a lot.
Okay, so it's just the classic six pack arrangement that most of us, not anymore really, but most of us here at least grew up with that kind of instrument arrangement, and all the information that you have in the all-in-one display is still all there. It's just spread out a little bit more. It's not really a big deal, I don't think.
I think my task, I think for next week's show is I'm gonna attempt to do an approach, and I'm going to do an approach into Atlanta with the MD-80.
All right. Well, let me know, and I'll make sure that I'm not there.
Okay.
Maybe you could do what Captain Al was doing with him last week and suggest some weather data for him to put into it. That would really show off the MD-80's ability to not crash or something.
Yeah.
I've done pretty well with it in my time flying it. I have not crashed it yet.
Well done.
You missed that last week, Jeff. We had a video. You might have seen it. It was on the show last week, and Captain Al gave me some METARs to put into the system for weather and stuff for the approach into an airfield that he flies into in Europe. And I mean, I landed.
Yeah.
It just didn't end very well for the passengers in the rear of the aircraft.
I think that for the most part, you did a great job.
Well, quite. Armando, dig us out of this hole, will you please?
Armando, the next story, moving on to you. And this is a story that Armando should be very settled with reading.
Yeah, I feel like Matt always gets the Ryanair stories, and I always get these weird vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Okay, no. Vertical takeoff and landing aircraft have proven to be the future of urban air mobility, with companies like Uber and Blade offering intra-city helicopter flights that minimize commute times and maximize convenience. So while helicopters are the primary form of transport for urban air mobility, one company is on the verge of receiving certification for a never-before-seen type of civilian aircraft that just now only has the capability of upending that mode of transportation altogether. Italian aerospace and defense manufacturer Leonardo, whose products include the iconic Augusta Westland helicopters, is nearing the end of the certification process for its AW609 tiltrotor aircraft. The first commercial aircraft of its kind, the AW609 takes technology currently found on military aircraft with no widespread civilian use. The AW609 merges the best features of a helicopter and an airplane. The vertical takeoff and landing capabilities enable the aircraft to land at airports and heliports close to downtown areas such as New York City and Washington, D.C., or on top of buildings when allowed. Once airborne, the AW609 can transform into a standard airplane by adjusting the direction of its rotors and traveling at greater speeds, higher altitudes than helicopters, offering the best of each type of aircraft in terms of range, versatility, and capacity. Gives the AW609 an advantage unmatched by even the swiftest helicopter or nimblest airplane. I feel like that was an ad for Leonardo.
Sounds like it.
Now, you've presumably, I mean, this is probably not massively dissimilar to an aircraft that you're quite familiar with.
No, it seems to be the same technology. Now, we've been talking about the V280, whatever the other one is that I can never remember the name of it, the SB something. And this seems to be right along those lines. There's always been talk about a civilian version of the CV-22. And I always mention that if you go back in time to the 50s and 60s, I believe Dornier had a couple of vertical takeoff and landing commercial aircraft that they were trying out. They just never sold. So the Leonardo one looks to be a little bit more tailored for that civilian market. It doesn't have the big old cargo door. It looks to be pressurized, which the Osprey is not. It's probably quieter. It's got a smaller cabin, probably more maneuverable. But so I mean, I do think there is a market for this in the future, but we just have to make sure that the safety record is going to be there to support, civilian operations. Now, we put the president on an airplane like this, so that the Marines operate V-22s in their VIP fleet now. So, I mean, if they're good enough for the president of the United States, and they're probably safe enough for the American public, I would venture to say.
This AW609 that first flew in March 2003.
Yeah, this technology. So there you go. On the YouTube feed, there's the original Dornier. That one is sitting in front of their museum in Friedrichshafen. And it's actually a beautiful airplane if you ever get a chance to go down there. It's a completely polished aluminum. But the technology's been around. I mean, the V-22's been around since the 80s. It's just we've continued to refine the automatic flight control system and the software behind the aircraft.
Currently in the chat room, Jonathan Warner says that he saw a 609 at an air show in the UK a few years back, and that one crashed not so long after he saw it.
Oh.
Well, I will always say, never fly the A model of anything.
Right, okay. It sounds like good advice for anyone. It's just like, sorry, I'm getting lost in the chat room. Where are we? Richard Adams was saying here that, didn't you say that the Osprey was very high maintenance? Presumably the AW Civi one would need to be far cheaper on that front if people were to sort of use it on a civilian capacity.
Absolutely. There's no way that the current V-22 airframe would make any money for anybody out in the civilian population. There's no company that would go after an airplane like that, just because of the maintenance needs.
I mean, what do we think? I mean, what are they? Perhaps I missed the point here, but what are they hoping that a civilian version will be able to give? What use would it have, if you like?
Well, it's good because you won't have the runway constraints. You won't have to have massive runways for these to take off.
Yeah.
It's speed and altitude is what it's going to get you. So you can operate out of a heliport like they were talking about in New York City. There are a few heliports, but instead of having to take a helicopter from New York City's heliport to Newark Airport or to Teterboro and then jump on a King Air or a Citation or something like that, this airplane will go 250 miles per hour. It'll be up in the flight levels. It'll be pressurized. And then you're going to be able to land at the Chicago heliport downtown.
Right. Okay. So getting you a bit closer to where you want to be, essentially, then.
Yeah, it'll probably reduce a couple of the transfers, if you want to call them that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fair point.
So that is the end of the commercial news segment for this week. But we have a special segment for you next. Now, Matt, this one is a video, isn't it, from Bournemouth Airport?
Yes, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know a great deal about it. Nev, I think, does, though.
Nev, fill us in.
Luckily, I'm on the show, isn't it? So
it is, absolutely.
This was some drone footage shot by David Duval of Bournemouth Airport. I think it was probably a week ago, maybe a bit more than that. And he's very kindly allowed us to use it on the show. I mean, Bournemouth Airport is on the south coast of England and traditionally not a very busy commercial airport at all. Maybe a couple of EasyJets, a couple of Ryanairs a day, that kind of thing. Bit of GA flying, but of course British Airways have used it as a plane park for all of their aircraft because there is not sufficient capacity at Heathrow or other airports. They've put their aircraft all around the country, Cardiff at the maintenance base, Glasgow and Bournemouth. Bournemouth, I think, has about 45 aircraft parked up there at the moment. And they're not all, A320s. There's some heavy metal there, as you'll see.
So for those of you who are listening to the audio version of this, do take yourself to YouTube actually to take a look at this. This video is, well, it's quite chilling, isn't it, really? I mean, we know how bad things are, obviously, in regards to flights being grounded and airports being very empty and things like this. But to see footage like this where it is so... to see the aircraft just literally with their covers over the engines and stuff, I mean, it's quite chilling, isn't it?
mean, it's not remember Bournemouth is not, it's not a huge, massive airport, but the video shows not just A320s, but you've got 747-400s here parked up, and there's also the painted Landor 747-400
oh gosh, yeah.
In the video as well, which is one of the special ones they had painted with the livery, but
part of their 100th anniversary, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it is just these are pictures that obviously we've seen right across the globe of aircraft parked up.
Well, obviously we had a similar one last week, didn't we, which involved MAG Airport Stansted, obviously, with where they'd the very fact that they were able to have a drone flying around Stansted sort of tells its own story, doesn't it, really?
Are there any airports local to where you are, Jeff, where there's similar scenes?
Yeah, one big one, ATL. Lots of airplanes parked over there on the taxiways, and they shut down the southernmost runway. Let's see, what would that be? 10 and 28 is completely closed because it's all clogged up with parked airplanes.
Wow. Is that all different airlines all parked up, or is it just one particular airline? Or
mostly the sister airline of Acme, Delta. Mostly Delta jets out there. And we have a whole bunch in Birmingham and Dyersburg, Arkansas, and, well, spread all over the place.
Wow. We
have like 300 and some odd Delta, like 380 something Delta, not we, they have 380 something mainline Delta airplanes parked.
Yeah. And also, I suppose it's going to be a mammoth job, when these, when things slowly return back to normal, which is obviously going to take a long while, but when they do return back to normal, it's going to be quite a mission to get all these aircraft moved, checked.
Yeah.
And
logistics nightmare.
I mean,
I've seen I fly regularly, into Pittsburgh Airport, and they've closed down runway 10 center there. And there's, I think at last count, there was 120 something airplanes sitting at the Pittsburgh Airport, all American and Republic Airlines, which flies for Delta, United, and American. And every day I see mechanics and engineers out there, and they're out there either plugging them up or securing all the ports, putting tape over the ports and things like that. So they're out there. I think they're probably going to do their best to take care of them so they're ready to go at the end of this. But
so I mean, Jeff, I mean, you have been in this industry a very long time, probably longer than you care to admit sometimes. I mean, these are very much unprecedented times, aren't they? I mean, is there anything really that's ever sort of come close to this kind of disruption in your memory?
Well, the only thing that has come even somewhat close was the 9/11 issue that we had, in 2001. But, within a few days, I mean, let's see, that happened on a Tuesday, I believe, and everything was back flying again by the end of the week, by Friday. So not everything, not back to the full schedule, but a lot of flying was going back on just a few days later. And no, I've never seen anything like this at all.
I mean, as an experienced pilot, I mean, what goes through your mind when something like this happens? I mean, do you think, for example, that we'll see the levels that we had of flying before this all happened?
Well, I keep hearing things from my company saying that when we emerge from this whole thing, and we will, that it's going to be a smaller airline. They keep using that term, and people are kind of pressing our management about exactly what that means. What do you mean by a smaller airline? So I don't know. I think that the airline for which I fly for the last 31 and a half years, is probably the best leverage to take advantage of the situation, and because we are the strongest going into this crisis, and I'm sure that we're going to be either the strongest or one of the strongest emerging from it. So I'm pretty optimistic that things are going to be fine with the company I fly for.
I mean, I guess this is an impossible question in lots of ways, but I mean, what sort of changes do you think we'll see off the back of this? I mean, do you think there'll be any changes procedure-wise? I mean, will different aircraft be chosen perhaps over others in regards to efficiency and things like that? I mean, do you think there'll be any major changes off the back of this?
Well, not really, because they were already going in that direction, and that's why the fleet on which, or the fleet that I'm flying, it has been slated for retirement, mainly because it's just the least fuel efficient, least efficient fleet of aircraft flying for Acme Airlines right now. So they were already positioning themselves to make sure that the fleet was as fuel efficient and effective as far as battling against all the other major carriers out there. So all it's going to mean, really, I guess, is that they're going to be accelerating the retirement of the old T-tails, like I fly.
Wow. I know you've said on your show, Jeff, about obviously the phasing out the aircraft that you fly, but what is probably going to be, or will be, the next aircraft for you as a pilot to fly for Acme?
Well, some of the T-tails that we're flying now are the newest ones, basically the McDonnell Douglas MD-95, which when Boeing bought McDonnell Douglas, they rebranded it the Boeing 717. That is the most fuel efficient of all the T-tails that we're flying right now. And they think that they're going to be around for a few years longer before they get slated for retirement. And that will probably be the one that I end up going to, which would be a slight downgrade because they're smaller airplanes and everything is based, at least at my company and most of the airlines here in the U.S., your pay is based on the size of the airplane. And so size matters. But the hourly rate for the captain is and first officer is a little bit less than the hourly rate for the airplane I'm on right now, but it's not really significant. And honestly, for me, I'm in my last years of this career, a little bit more than 3.5 years to go before I'm forced to retire in December of 2023. So for me, this is all gravy. I'm just having a good time flying, and it doesn't matter to me what airplane that I'm flying, honestly. And it would be a pretty easy transition from the MD-88, MD-90 series to the Boeing 717. It's just a 6 or 7 day school simulators, whatever, and then you're good to go. It's the same type rating I have now. The type rating that I have on my certificate is a DC-9, even though I've never actually flown a, quote, DC-9. But in honestly and technically speaking, the 88, the 90, the Boeing 717, they're all DC-9s. They're just variants of the original. So,
do you fancy the 75 at all?
Well, I thought about perhaps doing that, but since all this happened, they were talking about rapidly retiring those as well, including the older 767s in our fleet. So I'm thinking, I'm not sure I want to go to a fleet that's undergoing another retirement process. So
yeah, sort of doing it all again unnecessarily almost, isn't it? Yeah. Tony S in the chat room was saying that the Icelandic, which I forgot about, the Icelandic volcano had a massive impact, obviously, on the industry. The main man, Micah, he's got a question actually. He says, do you think that we'll go back to more direct routes with fewer stops off that? And then he quantifies that with an example, saying direct meaning you get on a plane, say at JFK to LAX, stay on the same plane, but more stops with people getting on and off.
More like the Southwest model. I can't see that in any of the major U.S. legacy carriers here in the U.S. because we're all built on that hub and spoke system. I really can't see us getting away from that.
No. Yeah, and I'll jump in on that. The regionals now are also getting much more efficient aircraft. So the Q400s and the Dash 8s and even the older CRJ 200s are kind of going by the wayside. So even out of this challenging time, we may get some regional airlines that actually come out on top with some pretty significant spoke systems, the regional routes with flying the ERJ 175s, 195s, the A220. There's some really good regional aircraft up and coming, and they may be the ones that are in the best position to take over some of those routes.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Mandrake in the chat room is actually saying here, so somebody explain to me what CVG stands for. What does that, what? Oh, Cincinnati?
Yeah, Cincinnati Airport, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, well, no, it means Covington, Kentucky.
Oh, that's true.
Okay. Anyway, see, they seem to be doing okay since we have large cargo traffic from DHL and, of course, Prime. And, of course, the cargo side of things, of course, in some respects, it's gone the other way, hasn't it? Where it's, routes have really romped up because people are staying at home. They need their deliveries. It's a funny old time, really. I guess it's sort of. I mean, I've noticed, for example, like where I've been furloughed, and you sort of worried that because you've taken a pay cut, if you like, but because I'm not going out, and like as we said earlier, like Nev, like me, is getting 3 weeks to the gallon out of his car. Weirdly, it's sort of. So everybody's at home, but because people aren't going out to have anything to eat and things like that, so everybody's buying food that they wouldn't normally buy, which I think is why the supermarkets keep running out, because everybody's buying stuff. So I mean, it's like the cargo, the guys, things must be mad for them at the moment with flying routes.
Obviously not with flour, because we've got no flour in the UK.
No, that does seem to be a bit of a problem. I don't know why.
We've got toilet roll, though.
We have got toilet roll, yes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
If you guys want to cut the military segment, I'm actually enjoying this conversation, because Cincinnati, this is something that I didn't really think about until now, as we're talking about airlines and we're talking about aircraft fleets being retired, the airports too. So Cincinnati was already sort of on its last legs once Delta pulled out in probably the mid 2010s. I think they lost their hub status. Pittsburgh, when U.S. Airways / American Airlines pulled their hub status, those airports cost millions to run per year, and they're now even less traffic going in and out of there. There's so many aspects to this shutdown, this crisis in the aviation industry, that you don't even think about. And Jeff, I don't know how you feel when I walk through the airports and they're just empty, and I think of all of the restaurant workers, the cleaning crews, the baggage handlers, the airport maintenance staff. All these people are not working right now, or they're minimally manned just to keep the lights on. It's just I don't remember 9/11 having this much of a wide impact.
No, because it wasn't that long of a span of time before everything started getting going again. I mean, we weren't long enough to even think about, laying people off and furloughing and that type of thing. I mean, actually, I take that back. There was an economic effect, but it was already a situation economically, at least here in the U.S., where things were kind of going downhill anyway, and 9/11 was just the straw that broke the camel's back. That just accelerating everything significantly. So it's hard to know exactly what 9/11, what the impact was on the airlines, as opposed to if that hadn't occurred, and
this
would it have happened anyway?
Yeah, and obviously this impact will be felt for years, won't it? I mean, there's no worries about that. So interestingly, Chris Griggs in the chat room was saying that my first ever flight was to CVG. So lucky him. A question from Micah, actually, Jeff. Why the 717 versus other equipment? Why did you choose? Do you choose that?
For me, it would be the easiest path. I hate going to the schoolhouse to learn new stuff. And I'm not a young puppy. I'm an old dog. And you know what they say about learning new tricks and such. I already pretty much know the 717, because that's basically the airplane I fly. It's just a little bit different instrumentation layout, different engines, that kind of thing. But it's pretty much 90% or more of what I'm already doing. I already know. So it's basically the path of least resistance is the reason, the 717. And I'm not up for a challenge anymore. I just want to kind of enjoy my time. In the last 3.5 years I have here, I just want to have fun. And I don't want to spend, months in the schoolhouse getting a new type rating and going through all that pressure and stress. Nah, somebody else can do that.
Well, Jeff, since all of your aviation wisdom is actually contained and held within your mustache, what are you going to do when you retire? Are you going to pass that mustache on to someone else? I
don't know. It's kind of becoming kind of a brand for the airline pilot guy, right? So I don't, and because when I retire from flying for the airlines, I don't intend to retire from doing podcasting. Now,
thank goodness for that. I'm delighted to hear that. God, I was getting all a bit. I was getting all a bit sad then.
Yeah, so I have to now that I have the avatar, the airline pilot guy show avatar with this big mustache. I have to keep it. There's
much like Plane Tales, there may be just a spin-off podcast with just a mustache, right?
The Tales of Jeff's mustache.
Well,
Jeff's mustache.
Absolutely.
Actually, Nev, I was going to say, Nev, how do you think BA will come through all this? Obviously being our national airline and having the fleet they have, how do you think they'll emerge from this?
Well, of course, BA during the week rely heavily on business traffic. Not everybody flies in the expensive seats, but of course, on the transatlantic routes across the pond, for example, and in the other direction to Asia Pacific, they make very little money on economy seats. They have to sell premium seats. And even premium economy probably doesn't make them a lot of money. So they've got to operate in the business and first class environment. I was on a podcast or a bit of a chat actually last night with some of my audiovisual chums, because we're a bit concerned because on the one hand, a lot of us sell higher quality video conferencing equipment so that people don't have to travel as much, but all of us like traveling as well. A lot of us are aviation fans too. Yeah. In BA's case, they've got a bit of an aging fleet now, certainly the 319s and the early 320s. So there's still going to be a lot of demand for that, Heathrow to Glasgow, Heathrow to Edinburgh service. What I think is less certain, and I have no information, coming my way to confirm this at all, is that those Heathrow to Manchester routes, those sectors which are probably 35, 40 minutes in duration. Now, if we had a slightly more economic train system that was, didn't cost a fortune, that might be a better thing. But they have to get, whatever happens, they have to get those transatlantic flights back with the business class and first class passengers, because those are the people that are paying for it. Now, obviously, a lot of intra-European flights as well. That's still going to be very much the case. And I think when we get to the end of this, frankly speaking, we'll all be a bit fed up. So, my first job is to try and get on a plane somewhere, even if it's just to go somewhere.
Because you booked your flights, didn't you, for to take Mrs. Nev to Malta at the end of the year.
Yes, I did. Well, in fact, I wasn't going to take Mrs. Nev to Malta because, having Mrs. Nev at an air show,
right?
Frankly,
but she has company now.
Indeed. So she actually, when I told her I hope we're still going to Malta in September for the air show. Yeah. She's sort of, oh, well, that'll be the only chance we have to get away. So I actually booked her a ticket as well. So she's coming, and Gemma is coming as well. So whilst Carlos and I are doing some serious work around the Lucca airport, they'll be in a chalet somewhere drinking gin and tonic and white wine, I would imagine.
See, the only thing that worries me here now is the abuse that both you and Carlos's credit cards are going to get as a result of that.
That's a given.
Actually, how did you find the prices, Nev, just out of interest for the flights?
Well, I booked them a while ago, so it wasn't too bad. But excuse me, what we were going to do was we thought about going to one of the Canary Islands, maybe Fuerteventura, later in the year, because it's still warm there in October and November. The prices of the flights today for a November trip are horrific. And we looked at the same for the Algarve in Portugal as well, just for comparison purposes. It is horrific. So what we've got to remember is I don't think we're going to be seeing any inexpensive tickets when all this comes back, because the airlines have got revenue to make. So we've actually decided to take a driving holiday in Scotland for a week instead. Because it's the cheaper option. And I'm being furloughed myself as well in a few weeks' time. So, there'll be less money coming in as well. So I've got to think about that too.
Actually, I will say, just quickly, Matt, I have nothing but the most respect for BA, because they cancelled, as some of you might know, they cancelled our flights to Charlotte for the end of May. And BA sent me an email saying they cancelled the flights. They'd rebooked us on another flight for a month later, which didn't really doesn't fit with anything that's going on at the moment. So I contacted BA's help centre or help desk. And I have to say, Nev, they were really quick on answering the phone, and the customer service representative I spoke to was really good, very, very kind, very courteous, and just said, that's fine, we'll refund the entire flight costs, including all the taxes and everything else, and they'll be refunded straight back to your payment card. The only thing they said was it may take up to 30 days for the money to go back, which is absolutely fine. But no, hats off to BA, because they were very, very amicable.
That's good to hear. And obviously they're absolutely full on with incoming inquiries of all sorts. So that's good here.
But I will miss my trip to come out and see you, Armando, this year. I will say, definitely miss that.
We'll miss you. We were ready for it.
Do you think, all jokes aside, though? I mean, because I know in some respects, because one of the biggest problems I think all the airlines are going to have off the back of this is that word that is quite often bandied around, and that is cash flow. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, presumably it's not very helpful, if you like. I mean, I get why customers are obviously having their refunds, because like in Carlos's case, it's not going to be convenient for him to perhaps take the rescheduled dates or to find another window, if you like, to go. But I mean, that must be a serious concern, if you like, if all these airlines are literally having to give all their money back, if you like. So it's not so bad that it's bad enough that all these planes are on the ground and they're not going anywhere and all those costs there, but they're also having to give everybody their money back. I mean, it's I know some airlines were actually sort of offering incentives, weren't they, to give you a larger discount on giving discounts on chats. Discounts on flights, if you took a voucher rather than having cash.
I was actually quite surprised that BA, not only did they offer us a voucher, but they had rebooked us on a flight a month after the date that we were initially supposed to go, because I suppose they assume that everything will be okay in and around the kind of sort of 10th of June, sort of mid-June time. But yeah, I was quite surprised that they'd done that rather than just go straight forward with a refund. But
yeah, and Neil Braden's saying in the chat room actually that Aer Lingus had a great response, added 10% on top of full credits, so got an extra €200 on family flights for the US later in life. That's really quite cool, isn't it? But I don't know whether is that a refund or is it just a full credit? Because that's the thing, isn't it? Because at least in that scenario, the airline is retaining the cash, if you like. They're just sort of postponing it for use later on. I mean, I guess, is that something that you'd use, Nev, for example, as a way of, or is it just you want the cash back in your wallet?
If it's for business flights, yes, I can probably make that work. But for sort of domestic, holiday type flights, that's more difficult to do because you've got hotels going on. And the other thing during this bit of investigation I was doing for looking at hotel prices as well later in the year. Again, these are seriously high. And again, those guys are going to be in the same position, aren't they? So just think about, it's not just the airlines, but it's all the hospitality and accommodation folks as well.
Yeah, indeed. Similar issues, I guess, in the States, Jeff, with airlines like Acme and that. I mean, that must be the biggest issue for the airlines. It is the cash flow element to all this.
Yes. preservation of cash. That's what it's all about. That's the number one game. So that's why they keep, stressing, if you can afford to, take a permanent or not a permanent, a temporary leave of absence or PLOA, please do. We'll still give you, some medical benefits and perhaps some flying benefits, although not sure who would want to fly at this time, or if you could even find a flight to where you want to go. But I think right now at Acme, 35,000 are out on voluntary leaves of absence, whether they be a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, or even in some cases a full year. And another thing I wanted to mention, I believe Nev mentioned being on furlough.
Yes. There was
a good discussion on social media the other day regarding that term, which has a different meaning in the U.S. When we have pilots on furlough here, they're not getting paid a cent.
Oh, really?
And they're not getting any benefits. And the only thing when you're furloughed at an airline, if you're a pilot, is that you retain your seniority accrual while you're furloughed, but you don't get paid anything. So it's a completely different kind of a system over here, or the term has a different meaning.
Interesting.
Are you still doing loads of flying with your airline, Armando, over your side?
Yeah, we're still on a full schedule, believe it or not, but we're a little bit different because the majority of our network, which is nationwide, is funded through the Essential Air Service Program, which is a government subsidy for underserved communities. And those subsidies are usually, they span fiscal years. So it'll be a 3 fiscal year government subsidy. And it's not just the federal government. It may be the local government, a state or a city, combined with the Department of Transportation. And together they fund a certain amount for that 3-year period or 2-year period, depending on what it is. So we continue to fly a full schedule, one, because that's what the contract says, and two, the money has already been allocated at the beginning of the fiscal year. So that's that. However, we in our company are having the conversation of, well, how do you take that and how do you balance it with the safety of the workers? Not to mention our part for the environment, right? So we're burning a lot of gas still to fly a lot of empty airplanes. And it has just been the craziest thing because the majority of our passengers are other airline employees. They're pilots and flight attendants that have lost their way to commute from hub to hub, and they've discovered us flying a full schedule. So the majority of my passengers nowadays are actually other airline employees.
Wow. Yeah. Laura, actually, interesting point. She was sort of saying, or comments she was making in the chat room, she said, I have thought about booking flights now for trips later because they are so cheap and the chain's cancellation policies are so flexible. And she was actually asking Jeff the question, are furloughed pilots able to claim unemployment in the States?
Yes, I answered that in the chat room, so you'll receive my response right there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as I know, yes. I think that if you're on furlough as a pilot or perhaps any kind of employee here, I believe that you are. It's okay for you to file for benefits, unemployment benefits.
See, and that the reason why sort of there was a point to me to mentioning it really, because the term furlough here in the UK actually means the opposite of that, because you are essentially being retained in mine and Carlos's case, we're being retained by our employer on 80% of what we would have been getting, if you like, on our normal hourly rate. And that essentially is literally to ensure that we aren't all suddenly massively unemployed and therefore claiming from the governments. As I say, so the term furlough is very different in the States as to what it is meant here.
Yeah, Matt, I have a question for you then. Would that mean that if you were on unemployment there and not on furlough, would you be making more money on unemployment or on your 80% furlough status?
Certainly, in my case, unemployment benefits. I think it would depend. It depends on your personal circumstances. Is the long and the short of it. There was a time, perhaps here in the UK, where your employment. Sometimes it was more beneficial if you were like to sort of play the system and not work. That's pretty much not the case now, and it is certainly more financially beneficial to be in work rather than out of it, and therefore in this scenario to be furloughed is better than being on benefits here in the UK, certainly. So there is more help available to you if you are employed than you are either self-employed. And actually the biggest issue here is that self-employed people at the moment are perhaps likely to suffer more than people like me and Carlos, who are lucky enough to be working for good companies who know what they're doing. And we're both very lucky in that, aren't we, Carlos? Really, and Nev as well. Obviously, you're the same. I mean, you're working. Your company is predominantly states-based, isn't it? But they're sort of, they've got everything in place to help you as best they can as well.
Yeah, and we've got operations all around the world, and of course, each. I don't talk too much about it, but in general terms, each operation is working within the local government regulations and rules with regard to this. So everybody is different. And actually, I was finding out that my colleagues in the States, in the US, actually the rules vary from state to state as well, not just across the country. So there's, a whole set of probably not 50 different rules, but, a lot of different rules in the US.
Very complicated for your company, and as you say, given the fact that they're operating in so many different countries, with each country and each EU. I mean, it's not just a case of all EU countries are running by the same rules, are they? Each individual country has their own sort of structure in place.
Here's to muddy the waters even more.
Oh, good.
In aviation, I am Pittsburgh based. Therefore, if I were to be furloughed, even though I have nothing to do with Pennsylvania, I would have to file Pennsylvania unemployment. So for many of us that commute and do not live in base, I pay a certain amount of my taxes to the state of Pennsylvania, even though I'm just based there and I transit there. So I would be subject to the Pennsylvania unemployment laws, which may be very different than the Georgia unemployment laws and benefits, even though I live in neither one of those places.
Well, quite. This is this issue. Now, ironically, of course, we've basically had a very it's been a great discussion, guys. The long and the short is, I'm really sorry, guys, but we've run out of time for military. So I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, thank goodness. I hate reading those stories.
Yeah. The producer is saying in my ear if we could do it in 20 minutes. I don't know. What do we reckon? Should we do a couple of stories?
We can summarize. The KC-46 program is still messed up.
Hang on, no. You got to have the. Hang on.
Not 20 seconds.
Yeah, not 20 seconds. Here we go. Hang on. There's your stinger. Go nuts.
Okay, Jonathan Warner, this is going to be just for you. We're going to do all 4 military stories in less than 60 seconds. So number one, we talked about a French fighter jet that launched a passenger out the top. Well, that turned out to be a mistake, obviously. Well, apparently the guy wasn't trained for it and he wasn't prepared. So his seatbelt wasn't tight enough. So as they did some spirited maneuvers, he grabbed on to the ejection handle and he pulled that, right? So that's number one, kind of bad form. Well, what happened is he got launched out the top of the airplane, which blew the canopy from the front, but the seat malfunctioned for the pilot. And even though he was supposed to be ejected because he pulled the ejection seat, he wasn't, and the pilot was able to land the airplane. So that's military story number one.
Right, good, lovely. Okay, number two, please.
Yeah. Number two, the KC-46 program is completely still messed up. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Boeing is taking complete admission to the remote vision system being messed up.
Well, and they're paying for it, basically, aren't they? They've got to pay for it.
And Boeing is paying for it.
Yeah.
Story number three, the A-10 is still an A-10, and it can take a beating and keep on flying. This one landed wheels up, and it looks like it's just got a couple scratches on the belly, and I'm sure it'll be back in the air by probably Monday.
Right.
It's already flying.
It's already flying. Yeah. It's already been. Yeah.
And the fourth story was about a pilot that was reunited with the aircraft he flew back in Vietnam. It was a C-130A model, and he found it at the National Warplane Museum in Geneseo, New York. He was at that museum. He recognized the tail number and realized that he had flown it in Vietnam. Which the one question I had for that is, Jeff, have you ever seen one of your C-141s?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No. He drank a beer last week that was made from a...
Well, honestly, I never really paid close attention to all the different tail numbers that I flew. I'm sure I have them written down somewhere in the logbook. I think they call them logbooks. I don't know. I haven't kept a log. Shh, don't tell anybody. I've not kept a logbook since I was hired back 31 and a half years ago.
I don't think you need to be fair. There'll be somebody within the APG community who will be able to answer all of those questions for you without even looking at a book. I have no doubt.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Just before we go, there is some breaking news as well. I don't know whether you can be able to see this at all.
Right, okay. For those listening to the audio podcast, Nev's just put a graphic up on the screen that says, breaking news, wearing a mask inside your home is now highly recommended, not so much to prevent COVID-19, but to stop you from eating.
Oh, yes.
And that's been a real problem, it has to be said. I've done a lot of baking this last week, and I've put on half a stone in like a week. It's crazy.
It's probably part of my fault as well, Matt.
Yeah, it's that cake that Carlos did a drive-by. He did literally, he threw cake at my front door and drove off. Right? Literally, that's what he did.
No, Jeff, I really did.
Wow, I'm not even joking.
I threw a bag of cakes and blackjacks at Matt's door, and then drove off in the TriStar van as quick as I could.
Yeah, literally.
Are they very, very hearty cakes?
I still ate them. I don't know what. Okay. I don't know, but that tells you more about me than anything else, I think. But there we are. So that's the military in a nutshell. Well done, Armando.
Oh, dear, that was fun.
Don't get any ideas, because that may be how we do it from now on.
Right.
Military in 60 seconds.
Armando or Jonathan Warner will literally have a cowman if we do that. So no, we don't need to do that. Okay, it's time to start wrapping up, boys and girls. Jeff, it's been a real pleasure to have you on, albeit unexpectedly.
What a treat.
Yeah, real treat. So thank you very much for joining us. Have you got a date? Because you were actually supposed to be recording yourself this evening, weren't you?
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird situation. I signed up for enhanced broadband internet and AT&T fiber, so it's going to give me like giganet.
Oh, lovely.
No, not giganet,
wow.
Gigabit internet. And the guy came this morning and was supposed to install it. And he says, before I get going here, I need to check to make sure we're getting good light from your port cable, in the street or whatever. And I went, oh, okay. And then like about an hour and a half goes by and I'm thinking, where the heck did he go? And I went outside and his van was gone and he was nowhere to be seen. I don't know what happened to him. I thought, maybe next time I'll wear clothes when he comes by.
Right. I mean, that's an issue, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be maybe. But he finally came back and said that one of the port that is supposed to be used for our house, somebody else in the neighborhood a couple of years ago got it because they were having some issues with theirs. And so he said, well, I'm going to turn off your internet for a little while. And he goes, no, you can't do that. I need this for work. So anyway, long story short, turns out that I didn't get the installation today because they have to work out some things with this other, house.
Yeah.
And, but I still have my current, obviously, internet, cable internet. So we could have done the darn show today, turns out, but oh well. We'll do that tomorrow morning.
Okay, I can say what's the date? The date and time. Although I suppose by the time this goes out, they'll be unless they're in the chat room
now.
Be
long gone.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
So you don't want to watch it anyway.
Yeah, they will. It's all right. We all need it. We're all struggling to sleep at the moment. That's why we've got so many viewers at the moment.
Okay. I understand.
Yes.
So, social media links, as always, at the end of the show. Where can everyone find us? Nev, let's let Nev do this bit this week, just for a change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you can go to our website, which is planetalkinguk.com. You can find us on Twitter at planetalkinguk. You can find us on facebook.com/planetalkinguk. And we have an Instagram account as well, which is planetalkinguk. So any of those, you'll be able to get us, and we'd be delighted to hear from you.
Yeah, so don't forget as well, you can send pictures and audio in and videos to our WhatsApp number +44 757 22 49166, and you can send your pictures and videos there. And if you send us a nice picture in of something aviation related, which at the moment, let's be honest, is fairly hard, it's a challenge, Matt can put it on the wall behind him.
Also, for anything else, we've got podcast at planetalkinguk.com as well. Don't forget that. I got a quick message from Jonathan Warner there, actually, in the chat room. He said, "Hey, Captain Jeff, you flew the T-38. Did you train with flares like the F-5E in the photo behind Matt?" There you go, look, see?
Let's see. I don't see the photo behind Matt.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. 1 second. There you go.
Well, I know the answer to. No. Yeah, we did not have flares on the T-38. We did flare before we touched down, but not that kind of flare.
Can you imagine a brand new flight student with the ability to punch flares?
I can't imagine. That would not be a good thing.
There'd be lots of buttons being pressed.
How many phone calls to the safety office do you think that would require?
Many.
Quite a handful, indeed.
Yeah.
So as I say, I can't remember where I got to earlier, podcast at planetalkinguk.com. Jeff, in case people are stuck under a stone and they have no idea how to reach you, how do they get in touch with the legend that is the airline pilot guy?
Well, if you want to send us feedback at airlinepilotguide.com. And if you want to send me directly email, that's Jeff at airlinepilotguide.com.
There we are. See?
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us, Jeff.
If you want to complain about anything on our show, send it to Liz, Liz at airlinepilotguide.com.
Oh, poor Auntie.
I was going to say you could send it to Pip at Plane Safety. All complaints.
Any complaint, all complaints. That goes for PTUK as well. Any complaints, send them straight to Pip. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely.
So, before we wrap up, a big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. Loads and loads of people in the chat room tonight. It's been brilliant seeing all you guys and girls in there. And I hope you're all safe and well. And hope we'll see you back next week.
Yeah, worth mentioning also, there's been lots of people offering to take very good care of Jeff's moustache should the time arise that you want to take care of it. I think you could, one suggestion in the chat room was actually, like where you get the airplane tags. That essentially one strand could go in a key
I could put them in like lucite or something. Like little.
You see, yeah.
Wow, I could make some money.
You could absolutely. This is the way.
Yeah, just pluck some and
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
Okay. So
that
is where we bring episode 313 to a close. Thanks,
Carlos, you've forgotten one really important thing.
Oh, have I? What's that?
Yeah, well, you've got to ask everybody what they're doing next week.
Oh, sorry. Right. Yeah. Sorry. Round robin. We'll start with our privileged guest at the moment. Then, so Captain Jeff, what's on the cards for next week?
Well, tomorrow, as we just mentioned, part 2 of this week's episode on APG, episode 420. I don't know if you guys understand what 420 means over there.
Yeah, no, we got it. Yeah.
Okay.
We're all very relaxed about the whole thing. It's all good.
Let's see. What else? Next week, I had 2 trips scheduled. Both of them dropped, so I'm kind of on the hook to possibly pick up some recovery flying. But, honestly, I doubt that I'll be flying next week, so I'll be doing nothing.
Oh, dear. Carlos, what's on your itinerary for next week?
Well, hopefully I shall be sitting at home living a leisurely life. No, really. I might have another run for our National Health Service next week.
Oh, of course, yes.
Is good because it means it gets me out of the house and it also it's my part to help with what's going on in the country. So I might have another run to Birmingham. Apart from that, I will probably be doing some more pottering around in the garage with some steam engines.
Oh dear. So Armando, you've got did I see right? You've got a couple of days off.
Yeah, so I'm back on the schedule tomorrow for 3 days of flying, and then yep, I had 4 days off. I'm on for 3 days, and then after that, I've actually got 5 days off because it is spring break here in the U.S. and I don't know how I'm doing it, but as the lowest seniority guy at my base, I continue to get all the days I requested off. So I'm off for spring break next week.
Winning.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. The producer's just said in my ear, the roster gods are with you. By the way, it's just
well, let's just keep them happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Nev,
whatever it is you're doing, keep doing it. Yeah.
Nev, you've obviously polished your banana to within an inch of its life. I
beg your pardon.
This week?
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
There's a bleep button, right?
Yeah,
there's a bleep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll put it in post. It's fine.
I will be working next week, not on Monday because it's Easter Monday, but I shan't be going anywhere, of course, but doing some work at home. But just looked at my Apple calendar thingy on my phone, and it tells me that it's John Hutchinson's birthday on Friday, the 17th, and he will be 83 years young.
Good
so
heavens.
I shall send him a card from all of
And
us.
we'll all be going over to his house.
Right,
Very good.
absolutely. Yeah, let's all do that, shall we? We'll all pop over there and reminisce about Concorde and things like that. That's
Just address all of your greeting cards to John Hutchinson, the United Kingdom.
That's it. You don't need to do anything. They'll find it. They'll find it. Absolutely.
And before we wrap up the show, I'm just going to give a big thanks as well to Matt Smith, as in our Matt Smith from PTUK, because each week he is helping me to put on a live event on a Saturday night, which is an in-house disco, which we broadcast.
And producer John, don't forget that.
Facebook Live, and producer John as well. And we put this on. Matt does all the technical stuff. I literally just do the DJing. But we are doing tomorrow night at 7:30 another kitchen disco from here, from the kitchen, from the old PTUK kitchen studio. We're going to do a Saturday night disco. So if you're stuck in, as well, let's be honest, most of us are now, then if you want to have a boogie, and it's also a fancy dress night, and I can confirm that this afternoon I did go into the lofty areas of the loft at the house here and dig out
areas of the loft.
I know, and dig out a certain costume which I shall not mention, which I should be wearing tomorrow night. So that's 7:30 tomorrow night, right. And big thanks to Matt and our producer as well for all their help in putting that on.
And unfortunately, absolutely,
do we have to wear a fancy dress?
Oh yes, it's compulsory. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the moustache will be enough. You'll be fine.
Okay.
I'm gonna wear Sue's dress. Let's see how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, very nice.
She'll be delighted. Yes. what an image. Anyway, somebody get me out of this quick, will they?
So that's where we're going to bring episode number 313 to a close. Thanks everyone in the chat room for joining us, and thanks also to everyone who downloads the show as an audio podcast as well. Thanks to all you guys and girls. So from me, Carlos, here in my home studio, from Matt over in the PTUK studios, from Nev over in the Nev Tech studios, from Armando across the pond, and from Captain Jeff, the legend that is. Have a great weekend, and don't eat too many chocolate Easter eggs.
Everyone say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.